Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be Node.js for absolute beginners. So let's take a look at what Node is. If you go to nodejs.dev, you will discover that Node is a free, open-sourced, cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment that lets developers write command-line tools and server-side scripts outside of the browser. So normally, Vanilla.js is meant for the front end. So everything we build in Vanilla.js runs in the browser. We see the outcomes in the browser. When it comes to Node.js, it's for back end. So that means that we can use it to build the tools that execute at a certain period of a time, in a day or in a year or in a month. It can be used to build custom APIs. Imagine you have where someone types some details like a name, email address, and a message. Then they click send. Now, the normal JavaScript or the front-end JavaScript will pick the information from the DOM and send to a back-end script. And that back-end script can be developed in Node. Why do we learn about Node? For you who has prior JavaScript knowledge, this means you don't have to learn a new programming language. Secondly, if you want to be a full-stack JavaScript developer, someone who is able to use JavaScript in the front end and the back end, if you have three processes that you've programmed, Node will allow the fastest process to execute. Processes will run depending on how fast they are. None will wait for the other unless you explicitly specify it. The fourth reason, Node is single-threaded and non-blocking, which is memory efficient. Let's see, how can we get started with Node? The first thing, you have to download Node, and to download it, just head over to nodejs.dev. The home page allows you to either download Node by clicking a button or use command line. Choose whatever you're comfortable with and set up Node, which is not something we are going to show in this video. I have to mention that this course is not for people without prior JavaScript programming knowledge. So what are the different things that you should know about JavaScript before you dive into Node? So my recommendation for you is to learn the syntax, the JavaScript syntax. Know how to create variables, know what statements are, expressions, operators, conditional statements, arrays, then the lexical structure, types, classes, functions, the this keyword, learn about arrow functions, scopes, template literals, the semicolon, JavaScript in strict mode, ECMAScript version 6, and learn about asynchronous programming, learn about callbacks, timers, promises, async await, closures, the event loop. Then you find this tutorial good for you. Let's get to understand the differences between Node and the browser before we go hands-on. So both the browser and Node.js use JavaScript as their programming language. Building apps that run in the browser is completely different than building a Node application. Usually in Node, we are in the command line because it's a server. So you are not building things that are client-facing. You are not building things that are clickable. What happens with Node is that you can control the environment in which you are working. Like, for example, you can create a file on the server or on your computer, but with the front end, you cannot do that. When you are using JavaScript to build front ends and you are using modern versions of JavaScript, some browsers may not support the modern versions of JavaScript. So what you do, you would get something called a transpiler to convert your code to the version that the browsers will support. Commonly we use Babel to convert modern JavaScript to be compatible with the older versions of JavaScript. This is not something you have to do with a Node. Why? Because at the server you can install the version that supports the version of JavaScript you are using. Something that you need to learn about if you are going to learn about Node is the V8 JavaScript engine. V8 is the name of JavaScript engine that powers Google Chrome. It's the thing that takes our JavaScript and executes it while browsing with Chrome. The V8 engine is independent of the browser. We can have the engine anywhere we want and use it so that we can pass JavaScript. It's the engine that gave life to Node. If you install Node, you've literally installed the V8 engine so that you can be able to execute JavaScript in the back end. V8 was chosen to be the engine that powered Node.js back in 2009, and as the popularity of Node.js exploded, V8 became the engine that now powers an incredible amount of server-side code written in JavaScript. You'd find that there are other engines that execute JavaScript, something like SpiderMonkey that Firefox uses, the JavaScript core or Nitro that Safari uses, so on and so forth. This V8 engine was written in a language known as C++, but it doesn't mean that you need to learn C++ in order for you to work with Node. So let's take a look at how to run JavaScript in the command line. I will assume that you have Node installed on your computer. To confirm whether Node is installed on your computer, open a terminal window like I'm doing, type node -v to see the version. So mine, at the time of recording this video, I'm having Node version 16.15.0, so that means Node can work. Then get a specific directory or folder on your computer where we are going to put our Node code. I would suggest that for everything we are going to do, make sure that you upload it to GitHub for reference and for creating a portfolio. I will check what working directory I'm in, and you can see that my working directory is dev.ug. In this working directory, I'm going to list and see which other directory I can use. I'll move to workspace, create a directory, and I know that by this time you know how to use the command line, so I'll create here a directory that I'll call Node Tutorial Season 2. So I'll change it to this directory, and so in this directory, if I list, you see that it's empty, total 0. So for us to test out Node, we are going to create a small JavaScript app. The command that creates a file is touch, so I'll write touch. For Windows, for people who have Windows, I doubt whether this is the command, but I think you can install git bash to be able to run some Linux based commands. You can even use VS Code or another text editor and create a file directory using VS Code. Why don't I create a directory here, make directory and call it session 1. Then I move into session 1. In this directory, I'll run touch, and then I'll create a file. I can call this file app.js. The fact that the file extension here is .js, this is JavaScript. So I'll do this and call it. I'll do this, and then I'll open VS Code here so that I can write code. However, for those of you who know how to use text editors like VI, you can still edit with VI, but I'm happy with VS Code, so I'll write code space a dot. This means VS Code will open in this directory called session 1. Excuse me. So here it has been opened. I can expand it. I don't know if you need you need to view more, to zoom in. So I've zoomed in, and I'll click this file for you to see. So I can write some code here and I can write some code here, and then we do something. Okay, we do something about it. Let's see. Let's see. So what? Oh, excuse me, I have some app open here. I need to close them. So what if we want to output something to the console and we say hello world, hello world, and we put a semicolon here, then save our file. By the way, if we can open the terminal in VS Code and avoid minimizing and maximizing. So we can open the terminal by going here and at the top of VS Code and clicking terminal, new terminal, or you can use the shortcut. So for Mac users, we press Ctrl Shift and the tilde. Yes, I've not enabled showing keyboards, so I don't know if you may not be able to know these shortcuts, but you can go to VS Code. If you click here, you can see the shortcut at the right of the title. All right, so how can we execute Node? We can execute Node by writing Node, then the app name, and congratulations, you've just written your Hello World program in Node. So yeah, let's take a quick example, because we said that Node uses JavaScript. Node is JavaScript. Node is just Node just enables us to write JavaScript in the back end. So let's see things like variables, arrays. Do they work in Node? Let's see that. So actually, I'm gonna rename this file from app to hello world. Okay, like that. And you've seen that I've not included the extension when I was executing this app. So I wrote Node hello world, just like that, and at the browser console I saw hello world. Remember, in the beginning we said the Node is not viewable in the browser. It's for backend. It's used for building command line and server side scripts. All right, so let's continue. Now we shall create another file, and this time we are going to call it add the sum. So like I told you, in VS Code you can create a file like that. So sum-numbers.js. So we want to see, we are doing this to test out the different JavaScript concepts, like the variables, the conditions. So we shall create a function that sums up two numbers. And how are we going to create it? We are going to use arrow functions. So we shall say sum, and this will take in some numbers. So it will take in numbers like number 1, okay, and number 2. Then I'll collapse this. Excuse me. I need to collapse this for now, and return the sum. Okay, return the sum, or I may not just return sum. I may check whether this type of num num1, if it's not equal to number, or type of num2 is not equal to number, what can we do? We shall console. Yeah, let's take it simple. If it's not, we shall, excuse me. So I'll word wrap this so that you can see the code properly. So we can say return invalid input. Okay, else, we don't need to use the else since we have the return statement at the top. So we can say else return num1 plus num2, and then down here we can execute the number. So what we can do here, we want to see the output. So we can say let output equals sum num1 and 2, where 1 goes to num1 and 2 goes to num2, if you know arguments and parameters. Then at the console we shall output print the output. Then we shall go to the console and we shall go to the terminal and type node, then some numbers, and enter, and it says invalid input. Why does it say invalid input? We say the type of, so this is there's a mistake here. We cannot have two conditions in the type of function, so I have to remove this, and I can run another type of, or I can put the or here and say or type of something like that, and then I will clear my console, then run this again, and it still says invalid input. Why? Is not equal to number, is not equal to number. Why? Do we, maybe we need to just do this instead of this. Maybe we just need to change it differently, to use this. Maybe let's see this, let's test out this. Oh, still invalid input. Okay, if type of, excuse me, I'm just wondering why this is not working. It's not a number, return. Okay, let's first omit this here, and we run the first one and see. Okay, this one gives us, so I think I'm using the type of operator wrongly, so I can go to check if number in if type of is number. Let's see. So JavaScript check if variable is number. Let's go somewhere and see. We want to check using the type of function. So is a global function that accepts a variable or value argument, so undefined number. Okay, so to verify if a variable is a number, we simply need to check if the value returned by type of is number. Let's try it and test out. So okay, so I was doing it wrongly. I will show you. You see the signature type of takes in a value as an argument and returns. So for me, I was doing something wrong. I was running the condition. Yes, I learned to Google to find help. So I was putting the entire condition as an argument. So I need to put the bracket there, and then, so it was just a problem of syntax. All right, so do it that way. And then remember, type of returns a string, which is number, so we put it in the string, and we put it in a string. The thing about the type of operator, you can do it without putting these things in the brackets. Okay, it will still work. So because I have Prettier installed, my code is getting prettified, so they have removed the circle brackets automatically, because the type of can work without them. Now we can test again and see that we shall get the rightful answer. Yes, we are getting the rightful answer. Let's try to change to change, we shall assign output to with a new sum, and this time we shall put a string of my name. I'll put David in the first argument, then I'll put the number here. So this will not work. We expect that it will give us invalid input. You see, so it is telling us invalid input. We can I can comment this out so that we don't get confused, and then run. So what happens is that you can execute Node by specifying you can execute Node by specifying the extension on the Node file, but in order for you not to lose time, you can leave out the extension. I just wanted to show you that it works. Now at this moment in time, I would like to create a repo on GitHub so that we can push these things to our GitHub. So I will move back and one step back, because I want the entire everything that is in this folder, Node tutorial season 2. I want it to do what? I want it to be uploaded on my GitHub repo. So what I'm going to do, I'll run git init here, and it is telling me that using master as the name for the initial branch, this default branch name is subject to change. So I will have to run a git command, git branch -m, and then I specify the name that I want to be the default branch, and it's here, the hint is here, so don't you worry about that. So I'll write it. I've written it, and now I can check with the git status to see. So you see that my thing is okay, has become a git repository. So now I can create a branch which I'll call season 1. Okay, I'll create a branch, and to create a branch, it's easy. You just git checkout -b, and I'll call it not season 1 but session 1, like that. Now what will I do to push my code to the repo, to GitHub? Because what I've created is called the local repository, but I need the remote repository. Okay, so let me do that. Let me create the remote repository. I'll go to my browser and create git. I'll go to git, then I'll go to my username, and then I will and then what am I gonna do? I will create a repository by going to repositories, or at the top here I could click add, then new repository. You don't have to come here. You can install git repository on desktop app. You can as well install the GitHub extension in VS Code, but this is what I prefer, especially to show students how to do it. So here I'll call this Node session, was it Node tutorial season 2. Okay, like that, just the way, just the same directory, the same name that I have for the directory on my computer, but it's not mandatory. You can use any, feel free to use any. Then here I can write a description or leave it out. I'll say sessions code for each session in this Node tutorial. Okay, this Node tutorial, and yeah, so in this in Node tutorial in the Node sessions for season 2 at able state. Alright, I'll leave it to public. There's no reason why I make it private. I won't add the readme, I won't add the ignore, I won't add license. I'll just create repository. And I'll grab this link here by clicking here, and then I'll go back to VS Code to my terminal and say git remote add origin and paste the remote URL. To be sure, I can write git remote -v, and it will show that this is my remote repo and this is its alias, which is okay. Now I can go ahead and say git add everything that I've created. I add it here and then commit it, and I'll commit session 1. You don't need to specify the AM. I'm just used to it. It should have been -m. Then I can check the status. So now I will push. Okay, I'll say git push origin on the remote repository, push branch session 1. This will work if you have git already configured on your computer. Okay, so make sure that git is configured on your computer, and we can now refresh here to see if the code is here. And yes, the code is here. We are in session 1. If we click here, we can see our code. Your task for the able state students is going to be sent to you, and I think it will be sent to your email, and you do your task for the Node session. It was great introducing you to Node. See you in the next video. Bye bye.